idea for all this really came from a dream?
Yes, it did.
Good evening and welcome to Nox Mente. Tonight's guest is Dan Lopez. Dan is a 30-year spiritual seeker, practitioner, and experiencer. He's also a 30-year Edgar Cayce reading student and a former member of the A.R.E. For the last 5 years, he's been the host and producer of Spiritual Warrior Today podcast, currently cardiomyopathy and congestive heart failure survivor. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a real treat, Dan. I'm so glad you're finally here. It's been a long time coming.
Oh, I couldn't wait. You have no idea how often you guys would be talking on the show, and I'm like, oh my God, if I was a fly, more than a fly on the wall, I'd have things to say.
That's exactly why we started a podcast.
Oh, goodness.
And it's also, you definitely have to be on the obelisk as well, so we can get into other things, all the woo.
Oh,
And not that Nox Mente is not woo, but you know the obelisk goes deep.
absolutely. Absolutely.
It's funny, people, I always have to remind people, you have a history out there of doing all kinds of amazing stuff, and your show and all this. So it's out there. It's just, it's interesting how we don't find each other sometimes, and yet we do. I mean, I don't know. Like, I just encountered someone today that's been out for years, and I'm like, how did I not know this person existed? So, but the work you've done has been really fantastic, and you have been a trailblazer in your own right. So I just want to acknowledge that.
You're
I know.
you're too kind.
I'm softening you. I'm softening you up for the kill.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
All right, so let's get into it. And hello, Jerry. Hello, everyone
Hello,
listening.
Nish. Got to get in to get out, baby.
That's right. That is so right. All right, Mr. Lopez, Dan, my friend,
Senor Lopez.
let's go back in time. Let's take it all the way back to your first memories in this life. And what do we find there?
What do you find? You find a typical child being raised in a fairly dysfunctional home, predominantly Spanish. So it's very strict. Parents who were raised by crazy people, who were also raised by psychopaths and dysfunctionalities. Long history of alcoholism, abuse, psychosis, and also a mixture of weird woo type stuff, like stories of my grandfather. His father, my grandfather's father, used to be a ladies' man while he was married. So my grandfather, he got into tending a farm, and he would sell whatever he grew up at the local shop, right? So one time his father decided that he was going to wipe out my grandfather's crop, take it up to the freaking locals, sell it, take the money back, and go meet his concubine. My grandfather finds out, decides to go hunt down his father, and sets fire to the little shack that they were in.
Oh,
with
my
them in it.
goodness. Oh,
So fast forward that a couple of maybe about 40 years, and he's now a spiritual leader in the Bronx. Completely turned himself over. He was a part of the police academy over there, and proceeds to tell my father that if he wants to get into what he's doing, he has to be really, really beyond good. Because what he was doing was a combination of spiritualist and Santeria.
Mm.
So he would basically go and take care of, people who weren't feeling well, who were lovelorn, anybody who had spiritual problems or anything like that, they'd come and they'd request him. He wound up having a competitor in the area. So legend has it that the competitor decided that he was going to send some demons after my grandfather. So they go to send the demons after my grandfather, and my grandfather's just doing what he's doing, and he always has protection going on. And he basically mirrored back whatever came to him. The competitor wound up becoming possessed.
Oh, wow.
The competitor's wife got a hold of my grandfather, tells him, Beto, you have to come. You have to come now. My husband is stark naked on top of the refrigerator, spitting and cussing and fuming, and I can't get him down. We don't know what to do. Beto decides to go over there, and he does what he needs to do. He tells everybody he's got to leave. You can't stay here. It's not safe. Because if it leaves, it's going to go to the next person, right? So they do, and he goes, and he does what he has to do, and within about, I guess, half an hour, he has him back, and the guy's weeping and crying and apologizing and the whole 9 yards and everything like that, and swore up and down that he won't never ever do anything like that again. He learned his lesson, so to speak. So I don't know if it skips a generation, but that kind of stuff, when I was growing up, was told that that's what it does. If the spiritualistic lifestyle winds up in your family, like when you shine or whatever, it tends to skip a generation. It's not necessarily so much so nowadays, but it was when I was growing up. So I had always been the kind that when I was growing up, we had this huge monster of an illustrated book of the Bible for children, right? And it was just nothing but story after story after story after story. Whenever there was some MGM 3-hour video on Moses or, the robe or whatever, I was always like watching it, right? Because it was just cool stuff. I dug it. When I went to go for communion and stuff like that, we had a situation where it was nothing like any other church time that I had ever been in, because it was like one of those completely unconditional love situations.
Mm.
And everybody had to hug each other, before we proceeded to have the ceremony and stuff like that. But we would go all over, making sure that we hugged each other, did the thing. And I was like, that was awesome. That was flipping awesome. I never experienced anything like that again in church ever again. Even when, there's a certain time when after you're getting the host or whatever, that they say, God bless you, and also with you, and blah, 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 and, you shake their hands or whatever. And it was never anything as engaging or immersive as when I went to that ceremony, which I thought was pretty cool. As time went on, though, my father got really handsy. because he started getting into alcoholism, just like his predecessors. And so it became very dangerous to be in those. You couldn't look at him, if you looked at him funny, you caught it. And usually my face is what caught it.
Yeah.
So when you say, I look a certain way or whatever, I have a hard time looking at my own face because all I can remember is how much it got attention from the freaking my father's hands.
Yeah.
So I was never particularly, that's not to say I didn't take what I had for advantage of, which is the confession as to how I was in the past. But the thing is that, it took a while for all of that to culminate into situations where it was like weird things would happen. Like there was one time my father was away and me and my mom were watching TV. So you know how when it's like really, really dark in the old days, all you had was black and white. I don't know if you're old enough, but in the black and white television days, Jerry might have, maybe, but all you had was the blue glow from the television, and everything else seemed to be black and white, because the light was only coming from the television. But I had to go to the bathroom. So I had to get up and go to the bathroom. And just as I was getting up to go to the bathroom, the opener started, the Chiller Theater. So you have the intro to Chiller Theater going on. I'm heading into the bathroom, which is a narrow hallway. And the bathroom has a window in the shower that faces the fire escape. Now, when you walk in there, half the window is above the curtain rods, and the rest of it you really can't see. I get in there. There's a silhouette in the damn window.
Oh.
Now, we have glazed over windows. So all you see is the silhouette because you have the street lights from the behind lighting it up, right? So that's all I see. So I walk in there, and before I get to turn on the light, the damn silhouette says, hello.
Oh my God. Oh Lord.
And I'm like, what? So I skedaddle, I ran. I pretty much don't really remember too much after that as I get back to my mom. I'm like, there's somebody in the bathroom, blah, blah, blah. She's like, now she's terrified. She's like, what are you talking about? Well, needless to say, nothing happened after that. It was like she went and it was like there was nothing there. But around the same time, we were in the same house, the same apartment. I'm asleep. My brother was just born, and my parents are in the first hallway as you walk in the first bedroom as you walk into the hallway. The bathroom is adjacent to my parents' room. Now, my father had come home, and they were crashing out for the evening, and my mother goes and takes a look at the door to the bedroom, and there's somebody there. She can't make out what she's seeing, except that it looks like a woman. A woman with a faint, like gray nightgown on, with black hair and pale skin. And she starts smacking my father.
Oh. Oh shit.
She's like, Albert. My father's like, what? What do you want? And she's like, look. So he looks and he's like, taken back. What the hell? So he goes to get up, and as he's going to get up, the figure walks across the doorway continues into the hallway towards my bedroom. And now he's off the bed, launched himself into the doorway, and there was nothing there. Gone. Just nothing. Goes in and checks the rooms and everything like that. Nothing. And my father is a paranoid, crazy person. So he looked all over the place and said that, and he doesn't know. He doesn't know what the hell that was.
Was the one that you saw in the bathroom a male or a female?
It was male.
Okay. So it was different. Yeah.
Yeah. It was male. It was completely male. A little time after that, I wound up going over to Puerto Rico. My parents sent me there for like three months, the summer vacation, right from school. I guess I was around 9. So I go down there, and everything's fine. I'm getting used to what's going on and the lay of the land. I don't speak no Spanish, but everybody out there, speaks English. So, and Spanish. So I'm doing the best that I can and enjoying Puerto Rico. It was just back in the days, it was just gorgeous. We're talking about like 1971.
Yeah. Oh, and the beautiful people. Oh my
The
God.
people was
The
fantastic.
hair. Yeah.
The hair in
Don't
the
get me
70s.
started.
Yeah.
There's so much beauty there.
My aunt has a friend, Irma, and Irma was very fond of grabbing the top of my head and shaking it violently. Saying, "I love your hair." I'm like, "It's thin. Leave it alone. There won't
Irma,
be
please.
much left of it." So, but Irma was a trip. Anyway, so I'm there for a while. I think it was about a month and a half. My uncle comes down, because everybody lived in the Bronx at the time. So he comes down to visit for a while, and I had made friends with a buddy at the block, and we were coming back from the beach. So as we're coming back from the beach, I tell him, "All right, I'll see you. Have a good one." And I'm now like, I don't know, half a block away from getting to my house. As I'm getting close to the house, I'm noticing, because we're on a long stretch of road, straight road, on the left side going away from the beach is all houses, and the right hand side is all farmland with a big Brahma bull that was, I don't know how the hell they got a Brahma bull down in Puerto Rico, but they had a Brahma bull. So I was always careful to stay away from that side of the road, because he always had a tendency of making trouble with the fence. But as I'm walking, there's this red glow about 50 yards into the field, and I'm trying to focus on it, but for the life of me, I can't, and it's moving really slowly, and I'm like, my depth perception was, I couldn't picture just exactly how far it was, because the red glow, it looked like it could have been a crop duster, but it was way too close, and that glow was way too big. So I'm like, what the hell is this goddamn thing? And it's literally creeping along. It's not like flying like a regular helicopter crop duster. It's just creeping along. So slow that I had time to go and yell over to my uncle and say, "Come here, come outside." So he goes to come outside, and I'm like, "George, what the hell is that?" He's like, takes a good look at it. He's like, "Oh, UFO. And I'm like, oh, hell. Okay. Now, mind you, before I had gotten there, my father had brought home 2 books and he left them on the coffee table. There were 2 paperback books. One was written by Von Daniken called Chariots of the Gods.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one was an old book called, I forget who the name of it was, but it was called We Are Not Alone. So they had interesting pictures in there. So I knew when he said UFO what he meant, but I could not, for the life of me, see what that was compared to the pictures that I had seen, right? So it goes for a little bit further down the field, and then all of a sudden it starts taking off at a 45-degree angle, does a zigzag pattern, and then it was like gone
Mm.
in a heartbeat.
Wow.
By the time that had happened, 75% of the road with the people in their houses were outside watching the same damn thing. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
wasn't,
Yeah.
so I wasn't the only one who witnessed this damn thing. Mind you, a week later, guess what movie comes out?
Close Encounters.
The Exorcist.
Oh my God. That movie was so scary. Oh my
So
God.
what does my aunt decide to do? Take me to go see The Exorcist, because what else do you do with a 9-year-old?
My aunt took me to scary films all the time.
What is up with that?
I don't know. I saw so many scary films as a little kid.
I begged my parents to take me to see Jaws,
Oh,
and I had to leave like halfway through because it scared the shit out of me. And I still won't go in the ocean.
I can't blame you. I'm not
Jaws
fond
was
of-
scary. Yeah, I already had a fear of the ocean, and that just made it worse.
That was
Oh God, that's what that opening scene with the girl in the water.
oh, that
my
was great.
God.
That was
Yeah,
great. I mean,
it
that
is
was terrible,
brilliant.
but it was
Yeah,
great. I was
no,
like one of those. We used to cut out of school because it came out. That came out when I
So-
was in junior high school. So we used to cut out of
76.
76.
Mhm.
So we used to cut out of school, go down to the RKO theater, and watch the movie all day. So we watched it over and over and over again. I think that and Star Wars, we watched those.
Yeah, I saw
several
Star
times.
Wars like 20 times the first week.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It was. Now it's ruined, but we won't talk about that.
We won't talk about
That's so funny though. Well, what a weird, did it ever get reported or was there ever follow up with it?
Have no idea.
Interesting.
Have no idea. I just
That's
thought it was
interesting.
interesting. Like, what was it, 10 years ago that they had that flight of the UFO that was going over the land, and then it went into the water or whatever, and then reemerged
Yes.
into the water and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I was like, that. Yeah, that's that's Puerto Rico.
So you were a kid. Okay, so I got it already. Your father was in the Navy, right?
Yes. Yeah, he was on a destroyer. He was on the Shangri-La for a while, and then he was on a flat top for a few years. He used to go. This is the kind of guy who swims in the East River. Okay, so he has no fear. His father used to take him up to the roof and have him box other kids
Oh my.
because that's just the way they were. And so, but he was where they used to test the nuclear detonations in the water, and he would set up all the Geiger counters and the metering devices on the sides of the ship and everything like that. He would put them out and he would pull them back in after the detonations and stuff like that. He says, when they went off, you could see right through your skin.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is so you have this history then coming down the lines though with the magic and the woo in the family. And this is I've got to tell you, Dan, that was always something I heard too, is that it skips a generation.
Right.
I'd always heard that. And my mama was a magical person, but I don't remember her having like the skills that say I have.
Mm.
But my grandmother did, but she kept it very hush.
Yes.
So that's also kind of where I heard that it skips generations, like the redhead thing. It's just
Right.
so I find that interesting. I like that. And so you were clearly open though to the weird world as a little kid.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much so. Because of those two experiences,
Yeah.
literally, because like I said, I was already open to like, wild things because I believed what had happened in the Bible and stuff like that. And those were weird ass stories.
Oh yeah, I mean, the more I learn about the Bible, the weirder it
Oh yeah.
gets.
Oh, forget it.
And
Yeah.
the creepier it gets, my God.
Yeah.
I mean, how it amazes me that this is such a good read, people. It's such a good read.
It
And
is.
there's a lot to learn there. But and you heard me say this, I'm not rebelling against it. So
Mm.
it's just a joyful read for me. Well, not joyful, it's kind of terrifying. But so there's all that. What kind of pop culture stuff were you enjoying at the time? Music when you were little, music, cartoons, obviously horror.
Uh, Michael Jackson. My father was very much into music at the time, so music was huge in the family. So he used to listen to everything from Tony Mottola to the doo wop, the golden oldies,
Oh
and
yeah.
all the '50s stuff, and uh, and Motown.
Yeah. Oh
Okay,
yeah.
so yeah, so that was huge. That was huge back then. And I remember that being the biggest part of the influence back in the days. And of course, Spanish music. There was a community that they got involved in when we lived in Woodside, New York. And a bunch of families used to get together and they used to go up to this place up in Pauling, New York called Green Acres, of all places, of all names, right? And
Hmm.
what they would do is it was kind of like, it was like an old folks place, but what they would do is they would say that they would care for the place, take care of the property, clean up the cantina or whatever it was called, and the hotel like area, and then they would have run of whatever they wanted to do. So they would go up there and they would spend like 2 weeks for this holiday, or they would go up there for Easter or whatever. And that pulled me out of the city life. And when I
Mm.
went up to hang out and be with there, I knew back then that was my natural state of being, was being in the woods, being
Oh,
in nature.
yeah.
And everything. When I came back to New York, yeah, I was acclimated to it and everything like that, and I kind of went with the flow and stuff like that. I didn't really look against it, but I preferred being there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like an instant thing for you. It is for so many of us.
Yeah.
So I kind of I'm going to jump around. We're
Hmm.
going to jump around. I want to look at, so you had, and if you don't want to talk about this, just let me know. But you just had cardio issues with your heart,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
And did you have any, I guess, for lack of a better way to phrase it, any supernatural experiences around that process? Magical, religious, anything that just is not the norm. You know what I'm saying?
aside from the fact that there was no heart-related diseases in my nuclear family.
And yours was severe, right? You had a severe,
Yeah, it was heart failure.
yeah, just like Jerry.
There was heart failure. I
Yeah,
went through about 2.5 years of trying to breathe,
yeah,
and I couldn't. They wound up taking about a liter of liquid that was between my rib cage and my lung. So, that was the immediate godsend because they had did all the surgery, they had to pump it and everything like that, and I was still having a problem breathing. And until they did that liquid drain, um, I was still having a problem
yeah.
after the surgery.
Is that the dreaded chest tube?
Um, it was the kind of they shove a needle into the side of your ribs
Yeah,
and then they drain the fluid from there.
yeah. Oh God, that's always giving me the creeps.
Yeah, it's not something easily to be.
Yeah, it's not.
Luckily, I was unconscious for a week, so I have no idea what they did to me.
Oh yeah, I believe it.
That's always just creeped me out the most. I call it the chest tube. It just freaks me out.
Oh, they had the other things too that they had. They had like 3 freaking tubes that went into my chest, and they were pumping all kinds of freaking liquid out and whatever. And that was the weirdest thing, because it took them forever to get the lady who was the only lady that was trained to yank these things out. Meanwhile, when she went and did it, she just pulled them out like they were freaking, I was like, what the hell is this?
So this is funny because the exact same thing happened to me. So I had kidney failure and I had a dialysis shunt put in my chest.
Right.
And I, for whatever reason, assumed that was connected to some vein or something so they could, do dialysis on me for a week. And when they came and took it out, they came in my room and just yanked it out. There wasn't a procedure or anything. I'm like,
Oh,
is that not just attached to something?
Oh my
No,
God.
It was crazy.
they had a catheter tube. They actually had 2 of them.
Yeah, I had one on my neck too.
Yeah. And so that was more procedural. That was official. Like there wasn't somebody who just came into your room and removed it. They actually put me down.
I don't remember
Right.
getting that one taken out. Yeah, well, whatever. I was on fentanyl and ketamine or all. They have me in some cocktail. Like, okay,
Wait.
do whatever you want.
Yes, better to be
So
on the cocktail.
getting back to your question, other than that, there was no. So like I was saying, there was no family history of it. I wound up getting arrested for not paying child support, and so I did like 4 days in the cell, and they got me out within several hours of getting out. I went over to the deli outside of the gated community that I live in, and I went to go for a job, and they hired me like right there and then. And so I was a short, what do they call them, a short chef or whatever.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I manned the grill and stuff like that, and prepared all the food and whatever, and it just keep me behind here and behind the counter, and I'm fine. I'll take care of all of this. Just I don't want to deal with the customers. I don't want to deal with freaking cash registers. I don't want nothing to do with that. So let me just stay behind here. So one morning, now this is 3 years into podcasting, uh, Spiritual Warrior today, of which I had several people. And the thing that I did was I wanted the listeners to be part of the show because there were stories out there that were being regurgitated over and over and over again. But the weirdest, wildest stories that you ever hear were the people who were listening. Was my thing. So I was like, I already got, Teal and all of these people from, and the guy who does the Woo, the actual Woo show. And I was like, all right, I got these people on here. Let me get the listeners on here. So I had holistic people, I had energetic people, I had all kinds of people who were giving all of this good information on how to deal with life without the medical industry, without the psychological industry, without, all of this nonsense, how holistic stuff. About 4 weeks into working at the deli, I get a freaking heart attack.
Oh my God.
It's in the morning rush. The owner, Patty and Kathy, were prepping and chatting away. And I was just helping out. Meanwhile, all of a sudden I feel like an elephant had just stepped on my chest and he had no intention of getting up.
Oh,
And I'm
man.
feeling my body tighten up and I'm slumping onto the counter and I'm doing my best to hold it together so that they don't realize what's going on. And because we have a line damn near going out the door for people getting their breakfast, that I don't make them look like, we're serving poison. So I'm holding it together the best as I could until it was finally over. And then I got myself out of there and I went to the back and I just, where we all smoked cigarettes, and it was like, what the hell was that? What the hell was that? Couldn't realize what the hell it was. Used to go to the rifle range with my old man. And so he was training me on how to do all the firearm stuff and stuff like that. Yeah, he was a big safety freak but he was a gun nut, right? And so I got into it. I was like, well, this is great. This is great. I love the smell of gunpowder in the morning and stuff like that. So I'm going through all the training and I'm watching all the videos and everything like that. And I go up to the range and I'm starting to go into the different positions that they do. They test it because they wanted to go up to a place in Ohio called Camp Perry, where there was um, like heavy competition, right? And everybody from all over the place would go and try to make the leaderboard or whatever. So as I'm up there and I'm trying to do what I need to do, I'm trying to hold the shot, but I can't hold the shot. Every time it's between breaths, my body is still moving. And I couldn't understand what the hell is going on. It's not like I'm just doing figure eights. I'm doing figure eights because my heart is so big that it's not stopping my body from moving. So I can't get a B at all in the standing position. I could do fine on the bench, but in the standing position, there was a problem. I had a girlfriend in Oklahoma, and she come up, and I could meet her I was dropping her off at the airport. And as I'm dropping her off at the airport, we're sitting down, we're waiting for her flight to get ready to board and everything like that. And she takes a look at my chest and she's like, what the hell is going on with you? And I look down and my chest is pounding out of, my heart is pounding out of my chest. And I'm like, oh, it
Oh
does
my
that all the
God.
time. It does that all the time. Because by this time it had been, had been a while. Never had it checked out. Always fearful. I always had a fear of the medical industry because if you go there, they're always going to find something wrong with you.
Right. Right. That's that's a common thing people say.
So I was like, all right, fine. I let it go. And I could not do the show anymore because I couldn't breathe. I just couldn't do the show anymore. I couldn't carry a sentence.
Mm.
That's how bad it was. And to this day, well, not to this day, well, okay, but to this day, not long after I stop the show. I hear about this stupid thing that the intelligence agency has where they aim it at an individual
Yes.
and they can cause a heart attack.
Yep.
And just before that, I had watched a bunch of people, 300 people. The video on YouTube is gone now,
Of course.
but they had over 300 people testifying, one right after the other, as targeted individuals.
Yeah.
Now, I never understood. I had heard, but I had never understood the whole scenario, right? So here I'm listening to story after story after story after story, perfectly healthy, and now he's got problems with the wazoo. Out of nowhere. Out of nowhere. So I'm like, you don't think that? Why would they do that to me, though? Until someone had mentioned that, well, maybe because you were putting out all that holistic information stuff.
Mhm.
Because what I was doing was, since I had become an alcoholic when I was a kid, I got clean when I was 24. And I started getting clean from 24 on. And so when I started my podcast, it was basically all the questions that I had about God and everything like that. I could not find answers in the rooms because nobody wanted to touch that. You have your own God, your own higher power. That's everything of everything. It's a spiritual program. There are no, we're not affiliated with any other things or like that, no religions or whatever. But we're okay with God.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Now I got to go and I got to find out what the hell the story is because I have a whole bunch of history going on with crazy things. When I was a kid, I used to hear voices in my ear. And I used to hear people calling my name or they would say, hey. And I never understood what the hell that was all about until one day I was still in high school. I remember this, coming back from high school, walking home because I had sold my bus pass or some stupid shit like that for drugs. And the voices started coming up. They're saying, hey. And I'm like, that's it. I had enough. I had enough. That's it. No more. I'm done. I don't care what this is. There was no one to talk to at the time. And so it stopped. 30 years later, now I'm depressed. I'm going through a divorce with my ex. I'm going to fix my computer, and so I'm underneath the desk. And I'm opening up the computer. I'm trying to mess with the computer and seeing what the heck is going on with it and everything like that. And all of a sudden I hear in my ear, okay, so close you could practically feel the breath.
Yes.
Now, I've had some form of tinnitus since I can't remember when it started. Like, believe it started like before 2010. But I get a 7 kilohertz frequency that's in behind my ear. And it's always there. There's different levels of amplitude, but it's always there.
Yeah.
So I know the difference. And since I had been doing the podcast, I've been heavy on discerning, what's been going on in my head and what goes on outside of my head. Because at the time I had already had the knock occur. So I'm fairly familiar with, synapse
Yes.
misfiring, right?
Yes.
And so how you can mistake that. So like the explosions that happen in your head or the sudden bangs that wake you up. Like when you're just ready to fall asleep. Usually it's just around the time when you're just ready to fall asleep, right? you get those bangs. And so I'm kind of, I kind of discern that, all right, I have to be very, very aware of what's going on around me to differentiate between what's going on inside my head and what's going on outside of my head. So I'm sitting there and I'm got myself underneath the damn desk, and it's in my ear, and it goes, "Hey, Dan," and I'm like, "What do you want?" Like, I understand. I can feel into you because by that time I had already had a best friend who was heavily into energetics, and so she had me practicing on how to feel into stuff. And they did that energy practice where you feel the energy between the palms of your hands and stuff like that.
Yeah. The
So
qigong.
and so you do all kinds of stuff with your aura and everything. So I felt all of that. So this felt like a woman who had been abused
Mhm.
in that house. Um, She didn't continue to contact me, but I found out later on that the owner, prior to the people that bought the house, had lost the wife
Mm.
at that house.
Oh, wow.
Now, Pennsylvania is really weird because it's real feminist. So, and with reason in this area, a heavy agricultural area. What happened was a lot of males used to take out their frustrations on the women, and a lot of women lost their lives here. So because of that, there was a lot of stuff that went down, and the men weren't prosecuted. It was just considered a part of life over here. So hearing that had happened here kind of made sense, and that this person had reached out to me, and how the basement seemed comfortable to me,
Mhm.
especially when now I'm separated from the wife and everything like that. This was okay. This was a comfortable spot because I had my office in there and everything like that, and that's where I did all the podcasts and stuff and the research and everything like that. So that was that. So then I I got talking to Jerry, who was uh, my friend who was teaching me the qigong and all of that energy stuff and whatever. And she gets me into going deep and getting into meditation and but like real meditation. Like I said, when I went into the A.R.E, I was meditating my ass off for like 2 years straight, every day religiously, because I had figured out that was, that was what you did. Because if you wanted to do anything at your Cayce level, that's what you did. You read the Bible front to back, right? Front to back. The Old Testament is like brutal as hell. The second, the New Testament, not so bad. But you meditated a lot, and the only way to get to the Akashic records was to develop yourself into a point where it's like, more will be revealed. The more you seek, more will be revealed. So I did that, and I felt into it to the point where different things were happening, where I was starting to see violet shimmers
Mm.
while I was meditating. I had never understood what that was. And somebody explained that was the flame of Saint Germain.
Mhm.
And I was like, what is that? I don't even understand what that means. But it was very calming and very soothing. There was another time I was in the basement and doing meditations, and I had, I guess it's Brazil, or where that big,
Oh,
huge tower
yeah.
of Christ with his arms out and stuff like that
Yeah, that's Brazil.
came into my head, but it was underwater, right? So I was like, this is really weird because it was all blue. It was just really, really, really blue, like a blue like I've never seen before. And I got up and I thought, so this means something, but I don't know what the hell it means, right? I'm like, okay. Not too long after that, I'm going through a bout of depression because of whatever's going on. I'm an old romantic, right? So I can't believe that this family is falling apart, and there's nothing I can do to save it, right? Because she's just the way she is. I'm at a deep, deep, dark, what they call one of those spiritual holes or whatever.
Yeah.
The blue shows itself while I'm sitting at my desk, damn near tears in my eyes because of what's going on. And I'm having been in the program and everything like that. I know about the pity pot and everything, and the feeling sorry for yourself syndrome and stuff like that. Right? So I know to keep it, okay, this is just something that will pass or whatever. But this blue showed itself while I had my eyes closed, and then all of a sudden, this wave of love, because I have no other way of describing it. This wave of love, just like a curtain falling in slow motion, came down all over me and drained me and pulled everything out of it to where there was nothing left but a feeling of okay.
Mm.
And I was like, I don't know, freaking phone, and I'm going to text my friend. I'm like, Jerry, what the hell is this? Because I had never experienced anything like that in my entire life. I'm like, that was the weirdest.
Mm.
That was insane. That was insane. And you know how you have experiences, and some of these experiences that you have, it's just like, they're weird as hell,
Oh,
but you
yeah.
kind of forget them,
Right.
until they're
Yes.
triggered by a memory or a conversation or something like that. This was one of those things that it's just like every time I'm starting to get into that dark place, that memory just comes up
With the Saint Germain flame.
with the wave of the blue. The
Yeah.
wave of the blue.
Don't you think that's connected to the blue flame of Saint Germain?
The violet flame.
Yeah, in some way.
I don't know. I think it's very connected between the flame, the Christ statue, because I was heavily into Christ consciousness and everything like that from the Cayce
Yeah.
readings, right?
Yeah.
So, and that blue wave
Yeah.
that washed over me, all of those seem to be tied into it to me.
Yeah. That's interesting and very beautiful, actually, when you need it. There's this experience. How did that inform the rest of the experience? Because clearly you were in deep trauma at this time, and this blue wave cleansed you of all that. So processing the rest of it, moving through that experience, were you able to get through the further hardships that were surely to come through that process?
Yeah, yeah. Uh, in so much as it reassured me that I was given the tools and everything that I needed to cope
Yeah.
with what was about to happen.
Yeah.
You know,
How long ago
um,
was that done?
20 about 2010.
Interesting.
Yeah, about 2010. Because it was like right before I got served. So yeah,
That's before you got served, which was after the hospital.
no, the hospital came later.
That's like just happened.
Yeah, well, it was happening since 2012. 2 years later, 2014, um, I went to go get checked out, and they were like, we don't even know how you're still functioning. It's like you're in bad shape. So they gave me a pacemaker.
Everyone wants to hear that.
Yeah, yeah. So they gave me a
Jeez,
pacemaker.
laugh right in here.
Mm. So they gave me a pacemaker and they sent me on my way. Right. And so I dealt with that for a while, and that lasted for about 2.5, 4 years, 3 years, about 3 years, because then it started getting really bad. Um, I got the surgery in 2018,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, so about 2 years after that. So yeah, so I had gone through hell not long after, about 2.5 years after they gave me the pacemaker. So then I
So
just go ahead.
so all right, with all of this going on through the duration of your life and with your open mind and query the towards natural health and your openness towards the mystical world, what has in general your dream life been like over the course of your life?
I would say periods of WTF and normal, just the normal weirdness that you could pretty much put to, what you ate and what was going on around you and stuff like that, going and looking back on it. Thanks to because of the Cayce readings, I found this author named Elsie Sechrist, and
Yes.
she did a book called Dreams, Your Magic Mirror. And so it pretty much laid down a lot of the stuff that Edgar Cayce was saying, how you can pretty much get a basic idea of how to read the symbols within your dreams. So say, to keep it simple, like you have a story of the house. Well, the house is basically your body, right? If you're in a car,
Yeah.
it's basically the direction you're going. Yeah. Simple things like that. And then it would go into other things, like if you see certain particular animals or bugs or whatever and stuff like that, you could pretty much have a definition that you feel into and see if that relates to you. Mm. So I had a good idea and a good discernment, I felt, for myself, that I couldn't tell. If I had a dream about this, I should pretty much be taking a look at whatever's going on, you know, in that area.
Hmm.
If I had a problem with family, if I had a problem with friends, if I had, stuff like that. Sometimes, and I do know that a lot of times I would have these dreams, which would feel absolutely like it was like premonition dreams, but I would test them out and nothing would ever come to it. Now, I don't know if it goes by that observance rule, where, you observe something and comes into your awareness and becomes a part of your reality, so
Yeah.
that can alter. I don't know if that had anything to do with those premonition dreams, but I do know that occurs. I do know that occurs, and
Well,
it just takes a while for one to become familiar with their own symbols and stuff like that.
let's talk premonition dreams for a minute.
Mm.
Do you know when you're having a dream that does become a premonition dream, is it a different flavor for you? Is it what sets it apart where you know that this has that extra to it?
Usually, when it happens, it becomes conjoined. I'm gonna say with previous deja vu.
Mm.
I don't get a lot of deja vu, so when it does occur, it kind of freaks me out because
Really?
I feel like something's catching up. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I know what that's going to happen. I look at the phone and the phone rings and stuff like that, and it's like that kind of stuff. And so usually when if I do get a premonition dream, it's usually to that effect,
Hmm.
where, well, I know this is, if I was expecting something, this is the direction that it's going to go. More because of the deja vu that happened before that. But if I don't get the deja vu, I can pretty much tell you that I'm not even going to tell you what the dream was, because it's not worth it. It's not going to happen.
What about your relationship with the dream world itself? So, with the architecture of the dream world and things going on, how do you dream? What's it look like, feel like, and smell like?
It has different textures depending on. It has different textures depending on the level of the dream. Some dreams are very epic in proportion.
Yeah.
Like there's so much detail going on that it's like next level. And some dreams are like very tunnel. It's just like, this is what's going on and this is where we're going and blah 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 blah, and nothing in the periphery. Um, there was one time just before the heart went uh, south, and I had to go to the hospital. I had a dream that my grandmother, my family almost rarely never show up in my dreams. My grandmother showed up. My late grandmother, and we're in a building. The building is like one of these Beirut, type buildings where it's like completely blown out. The walls is really like nothing. It looks like something out of a war zone, right? So we're there. She's trying to tell me something, but I can't make out what she's telling me. And all of a sudden, this really, really dark, wispy thing starts floating around like a shadow figure, right? But it's not moving like a shadow figure. It's moving like it it wants to be seen. It wants to be known. So it's circling in and out of the pylons that hold up the floors. And now it's circling and it's getting closer between me and my grandmother. And I'm like, just stay right there. Don't move. I got this. So it comes really close. And I'm like, first of all, you don't belong here. You're not a part of my mind. And this is my domain. And during that dream, I heard her call out. I turned around. She was gone. I looked back and the shadow was gone as well. And to me, that basically said that I got serious issue that's about to go down. And about 3 months later, I wound up at the hospital.
Mm. That's incredible.
Because I couldn't, now I'm losing control of I'm losing control of my functions, my bodily functions.
By the time you ended up at the hospital,
Yeah.
did you at any time during your heart issues tap out?
No. You mean near death?
Yeah.
No. No.
Dude, you missed out.
Well, it wasn't for lack of trying. Because I'll tell you, there were times where, well, let's put it this way. I smoked crack as a kid, right? Now, I took it to the point where, well, I want a fatal heart attack. Because if this was, I can't, this is the only thing that I have ever done. I've done pot, I've done all kinds of drugs, psychedelics and everything like that, and downers and uppers and all kinds of freaking sideways shit and alcohol and whatever. This was the only thing I could not stop. And I could not shift. Like, say, if I was going on a pot binge or whatever, I just drink. I just don't do anything else. Or if I was drinking too much, I'll just stop. I'll just smoke pot. No, this shit, I could not stop. And I didn't know what to do at all whatsoever. And so I was like, well, this is how I'm going to die. And so I decided that I was going to take, they say that you chase your high, right?
Yeah.
From that first high, you always wind up chasing that.
Chasing the dragon.
Chasing that. So I wound up taking that and going way further to the point where I didn't want to wake up. So I was suicidal, basically, right? Because that's pretty much,
Right. Oh yeah,
you know.
definitely qualified.
So those times where I would wake up drooling my face against the floor or whatever and realizing that I'm still here, I did not complete the task. I had that same feeling with the heart failure
Mm.
from not being able to breathe, being completely face down on the floor, not being able to breathe, not knowing if this breath is going to be my last breath. And I was already at the point where I was like, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
It's okay. I've done what I wanted to do here. I'm okay. You know? So I was at having not experienced an NDE, I'm not afraid of death because I already faced it. You know, there was a time, and the only way anybody could probably relate to this is if they watched the Iron Man movies, where Tony got his he had his heart taken out, and it disconnected the power.
Yeah.
And you watch him slump in the chair and sink like that's it. Everything's about to wink out. Well, they went to test the leads on my pacemaker, and they disconnected them. And that exact same thing
Oh,
happened.
jeez.
And I dropped and I sunk into my chair, and everything started going white and closing in. And she was the nurse who was doing it, who was administering the calibrations, everything like that, was just like, oh shit. And all of a sudden I came, I was like,
He's tapping out. We better get this finished.
yeah.
But so you had that distinct sensation. So everything was closing in.
Oh yeah. Well, I was gone. I was pretty. The only thing that came anywhere close to this was when I OD'd on alcohol. I OD'd in alcohol. And at a time during the blackout, I just wound up somewhere else. My consciousness was completely somewhere else, and there was nothing around me. I felt like I was sitting in a lazy Susan, and I was completely okay. And this is all right. I can. This is okay. Everything is okay. Everything is quiet. Everything's peaceful. I could probably do some serious work here. I could figure out some music. These are the thoughts that's going on, like in this matter of seconds. I could probably do some serious stuff here because I can think. I have clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And just as I'm starting to think that, I'm hearing, ah. And I'm like, what the fuck is this now? And it's getting louder, and it's getting louder, and it's, ah. And all of a sudden, next thing I know, I'm like going from complete comfort to getting sucked down into this tube, and all of a sudden, bam, slap, my eyes open up, and the rest of the yell is finishing a sentence and saying, "I gotta pee,"
And that
and
was
I'm
you?
strapped
That was your
down
own
in
voice?
yep, and I was strapped down in a gurney with tubes out of my arms. I'd already peed myself several times, because they had strapped me down. They were like, telling my parents, listen, we don't know if this guy's ever going to come out of it, but you might want to make preparations now and make arrangements.
That's interesting. How old were you?
19.
Wow, you were getting into heavy stuff as a youngin'.
Yeah, well, I started when I was 9.
You beat me.
I started when I was, well, they were going out to the thing, so we were sneaking beers and stuff like that, and cigarettes and whatever, and we were the younger part of the teenage crowd that was growing up with the rest of society and hanging
Yeah.
out with everybody,
Yeah.
because it was a party every time we went up to Green Acres and everything like that. So
Yeah.
that's just how it was.
Yeah, you chose the fast course as a child. So, all right, with all this, have your abilities improved in the realm of psychic awareness? Now, this skips a generation in your family, correct? Didn't it come to you?
Yes. Yes.
So, how did all this get you further down the road of these gifts that you had to come into?
I think it was more about curiosity and constantly wanting to know and understand my part, how and what I was supposed to do when I was here, while I'm here, because I never felt like I belonged here. It just did not feel, I internally, my core self feels like cooperation, harmony, and cohesion and communication and understanding. That's where I came from. And this earth was not that.
Yeah.
So I did not feel like that was where I belonged. And then I read Robert Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land, and I'm like,
Mhm.
dude, I grok.
Mhm.
I totally grok. I'm just a frickin' egg. You know, it's I don't know anything. The more that I know, the less that I know. And I was a bookworm, and you couldn't stop me from reading. So the more that I went on and kept finding things, I didn't really like David Wilcock, but I did like the books that he would recommend. So I would read those, and I would find that there were some books that really were not in the canon of spirituality,
Yeah.
you know, in the New Age, whatever movement of whatever. Like this book from Sherman, Harold Sherman, who is like completely, you can hardly find him anywhere, but he was part of some deep stuff back in the day. And he documented all his experiences in intuition and bilocating and dreams and you know, mind over matter stuff and all kinds of stuff. And he would go in there and he would document all kinds of stuff. And then he put it down, and you know, at every chapter there was parts that you were able to like put to practice. Now I was okay with that because Edgar Cayce used to say, "Listen, the Bible was written for you and you personally. It's not meant for, you know, bringing people together for whatever." It was like, "You're the church. You're the living church. Okay, what you get out of it, apply it. If it works, well, that's great. If it doesn't work, that's great too. You know, but take out of it what works for you and leave the rest." And when I went to the anonymous meetings, that's what they basically told us when we went to the meetings. It was like, listen, everybody's got a different story and everybody's completely different, but we all have these core things that we are all alike. We all have the same emotions. We all experience emotions, but they're not facts, right? Like feelings are not facts, but we all experience them. So if I tell you that I went and the lights were off and I banged my knee against the damn coffee table, you kind of know what my reaction was because you're having the same reaction right now. Because you know the feeling of a banged shin or a banged knee against a coffee table. Well, most people do. But that's a core thing, right? So when it came to, you know, learning about how to work on developing what I had very little understanding about, you know, at one point I was not sure that there was anything until my ex-fiance brings home a Ouija board, starts messing around with it with her best friend, calls into the room so that I can come out and help them because they don't know what to do because the board is yelling at them. No, I don't know. But I was like knee deep. There used to be a bookstore in New York called The Magical Child, and we got that's where I got most of all my Edgar Cayce books from at the time. And that's where she got the Ouija board from. So, okay. Unbeknownst to me, she had also purchased the Satan's Bible. but did not disclose that information to me. Now, we had been having my keys disappear. Different stupid objects would disappear, and they would wind up in the craziest freaking places, behind the couch, behind the refrigerator, all kinds of crazy stuff. And now she's telling me that the Ouija board is yelling at her. So I wasn't really like, I remember The Exorcist, but I don't remember that part of The Exorcist, with Captain Cody or whatever it is, you know?
Oh yeah, the Captain Cody part.
So they're like, all you got to do is just rest your hands on it. Don't move it or anything, the planchette. Don't move it or anything. Just let it do what it does. So I'm like, all right. So I sit there, and within 5 minutes, it's cursing at me. And I'm like, I'm looking at her hands, and she's not moving it. It's moving on its own. I'm like, all right, I'm not moving it, but it's moving. All right, all right. So now it got to the point where I'm like, well, you don't even freaking belong here either. So I don't know what you're doing here, but you might as well take off. It got pissed off. It says F you. And then the planchette does something very strange. It literally shot out from underneath our fingers, off the board. It smacks an ashtray full of dead cigarettes, and a flame about 10 inches tall shoots out of the ashtray. I mean, what the hell is this? That's when I find out an hour later, because the friends had left, that she bought the Bible, the Satan's Bible, and that she had it on top of the curio cabinet. And so now all I know is to get this damn board out of the house. So I don't know about closing off the session or anything like that. I don't have the experience that I do now after having interviewed somebody who was like one of the, she had been on Jimmy's show, Karen Dolman, to know all of the experience that that there was to have with this board. Like, okay. And so we take it over to the Magical Child and figure that we'll bring it back to here. So we can't return it, so we'll bring it back to here, and then we'll destroy it. So I wound up getting some lighter fluid or whatever, and I quickly set the damn thing on fire, and I just burnt it off. And then I was able to get some. I didn't know about smudging, but I did know about these charcoal discs that you light up.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to, pretty much smoke out the house. You leave one window open so that this way, whatever is in there gets to escape, right?
We usually put
that.
incense on them.
Was that it?
Yeah, resin incense usually.
I know we did something to that effect. One of the American Indian people that I interviewed told me about a thing where you use the local sprigs of hemlock or whatever, and or cedar, sorry.
Yes.
And you use that, and you put that on top of the charcoal, and then you use that for smudging or whatever you want to clear the house, and do that. He's like, okay. So anyway, back to the seance board. I smoke it out, I get it completely cleared out and everything like that. The house is fine all of a sudden. Keys are always where they belong. Everything is the way where it belongs. So the Satan's Bible, she got rid of it. It was no longer in the house because now I'm feeling for it, because I can tell. Now she was completely wackadoodle, my ex-fiance, but that was beyond. So getting into understanding spiritual experiences and understanding how psychic affairs were available, I didn't have an understanding of what intuition was. I had not run into ecobodine or anything like that, you know, so where I can understand at the time how to actually work on allowing what I'm feeling to be read by my person. Sherry was already starting to train me and all of that, so I could feel into it, so I can start letting my aura go out, pulling my aura tight, how to close it off, how to move the energy around, getting familiar with the sympathetic nervous system, and so the chakras and all of that stuff, and getting an understanding of all of that, and incorporating in that, and then learning about the Merkaba, and learning about the breath, the sacred breath, and understanding how to do the dragon technique and everything like that. And as those went about, I pretty much just used it as I'm just going to ask, and what comes to me, I'm going to feel into. And as I feel into it, it's either going to resonate or it's not going to resonate. If it's not going to resonate, then I know that the source that I'm asking is not giving me the information that is true. Because I'm a big proponent for protection, right? So in order for me to discern what spirit is telling me, that's my litmus test. It has to go with my heart. Now, I will say this. I was watching Gigi Young do a video, and she was saying how people who are getting these things clamped onto their hearts, it messes with their spirituality, and it disconnects them from the spirit world. And that scared the hell out of me. There's a lot of truth to it. From the experience that I've had over the last 2 years till now, it is so much harder for me today to work on my spirituality than it was prior to surgery.
That's very intriguing.
It was just a given that this is the way it is before the surgery. After the surgery, the head became harder and harder and harder to maintain the practice, to maintain the discipline, to know that I get up in the morning, I do what I got to do. I have my little rituals, I do my little readings, you know, and then I go about my day. Now, I literally have to remind myself, or I'm instantly just picking up the phone, walking over and getting my coffee ready. Whereas before, I would read into whatever I needed to read into for the day. Start the energy right, have a little bit of water, and just chill out first.
I've had the exact same thing. I feel completely disconnected since I was in the hospital.
It sucks.
This is interesting.
It sucks. It's literally an effort compared to what it used to be.
Yep.
Do you agree? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what about, so I guess looking at some of the core here and feeling disconnected, what have your dreams been like in general if you could sum up 2020 to now?
2020 to now, very, very bizarre. Everything from like science fiction, apocalyptic stuff to just holy hell, what the hell was that? I've had times where my daughter is calling my name and I'm waking up and she's not calling me. So she's not even awake. But very, very weird. I've had dreams where you know how there are some certain areas that repeat. Like, you know this area, you're very familiar with the area, you've been here before in
Yeah.
dream state. Like,
Yeah.
there's an area that's like, all the houses are pretty much the same. We call them ranch houses and track homes because they're all the same. They're basically all the same. Well, I lived in one, but it was empty. Like, it was one of those, you pull into the driveway. Well, that was, instead of the driveway into the garage, that was actually a part of the house, right? When you drove in, that was the huge bay window, the single pane bay window,
Yeah.
and inside was basically barren. There was like nothing in there. But I know I had to go somewhere. So I had to go somewhere. So I had to go and I had to go get my car. So I'm going to get my car, and on my way to go get the car, I run into a friend of mine, and so now he's going to come with me, and we're going to go get the car. Meanwhile, there's a festival, a dance festival that's going on, and I wind up in it, but only kind of skirting around it because I got to get to my car. So I get to outside of it. My friend gets lost in the crowd, and I'm like, well, okay, that's fine. I'm good. I'm going to go continue on to go get my car. I wind up going to a building just outside of the festival because that's where my car is supposed to be. I get in there, and it's very weird, very dark. There's a bathroom that I can't even begin to describe the Freddy Krueger like scenery that this building was, that this bathroom was like. Very dark, very tiles, but like really dank, really dank. And so, but I got to go to the bathroom. I realize I got to go to the bathroom. So let me find one damn stall that works or whatever and do what I got to do my business. So I go in there to do my business, and there's a drawing. There's a drawing, and it's talking to me, and it's saying some really obnoxious stuff, like really, really bad. And I don't know what to do. So I get out of there. I start walking towards what seems to be an administrative office. So I go through this narrow corridor, and this drawing is basically following me along the corridor. And now it's like at a radiator. The people on the other side are arguing. There's a regular office door with a glazed window with some name on it, and I can't make out the name. And these two women are arguing. And they open up the door and they're like, "What do you want?" I was like, I just came to get my car. I was like, "But do you see what's going on back here? This place is a disaster." They're like, "What? What are you talking about?" They go and they look past me, and there's dead kids behind me. And now I'm being arrested and thrown in jail for the murder of the dead kids. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? I get into the cell, and these other guys are there. And they're like, "What are you here for?" I'm like, I have no idea. The weirdest freaking thing, and I cannot even begin to explain what's going on. They look at each other, and all of a sudden, if you look on the wall, there's that damn drawing, and they're talking to the drawing.
Oh my God.
And that's when the dream ends.
Wow. That's intense.
That was a holy hell for me. I was like, what the hell is this?
When about was that? Do you recall?
It's only maybe 6 months ago,
Yeah,
six,
man,
9 months ago.
that's incredible.
Yeah.
In this time period as well, with in this general lockdown time period, have you had any dreams that may suggest like demons or monsters of any sort, cannibals, any of that kind of stuff?
No, not, no, no monsters. Um, no demons. Just weird people stuff.
Yeah.
Like people being weird. Like characterizations that would normally not even be in my wheelhouse, for lack of a better term. Things like, and thoughts. There was this time that you were telling me, I heard you were discussing how something was really weird with time. And the
Yes.
people were not recognizing each other until there was a recognition. But that recognition was like completely unrelated to what was going on. It was like 1 minute they'd have no clue who you are, and the next minute they're like, oh, and it's like they caught up,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I had a moment. I was telling my daughter, and I don't know if I was able to respond to you guys. I think it was in the chat in Discord. We were going over it, and it was the same way. My daughter works at, or did work at a food court. It's kind of a food court, but it's like a little, a little food shop just outside the gated community. I could not remember. Now I drove her, was the only one who was driving her to this food court. I could not remember the name of the food court.
Oh wait.
Oh, wait is right.
What do you think's going on with that?
I think they're not done with whatever's going on. I know personally, I feel it, I understand that there are other things going on that actually do have a bead on every individual on the planet. It's a broad scope. It's a beam that pretty much circles the planet. But it kind of like, remember, I don't know if you know, like Crow 777, if you ever watched the moon wave.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
The
Yeah, well,
lunar
they
wave.
have,
Lunar wave.
yes. Well, they have that here. They have that here. And basically it picks up whatever you're thinking, doing, or being at the time that it sweeps. It records it and it puts it back. So they know what's going on. Now, does the Black Ops have that technology? I don't know, but I do know that they're working on it. Hence all of the stuff that you've been sharing with the nanotechnology and all of that other stuff and all of this experimental
Yes.
RNA freaking
Yeah.
software that they're trying to install.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't have that technology and they have to have it. And they're trying to set it up with Starlink and all of that fun stuff. The space fence or whatever you want to call it. being able to now, I don't know if you, Jared, do you remember the X-Men?
Well, yeah. What about him though?
Okay, so Dr. Xavier,
Mm-hmm.
he puts on this helmet,
Yep.
which
Cerebro.
allows him to catch the signal of all the
Cerebro.
mutants.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So at any given point in time, he knows where everybody is. That's what they're working on. They're working to make that a freaking reality.
Which probably already exists in another
Which already exists, but it's not
dimension or
in
whatever.
ours
Right.
currently. Right. It's not what they call in the private sector. It's not in the public sector.
Yeah, it's outside of our reality.
Which is not far from
It doesn't
reality
have to be that
anymore.
far outside of our reality with
Not anymore.
all
No,
the
but I
tech
mean-
we're looking at right
Yeah,
now.
I know. I'm just thinking that there's monitoring of us going on from a higher plane of existence, or a different one at least, not higher, but
Well, you
Yeah.
mean like the Akashic records, where everything is written on the skin of time.
yeah, I'm familiar with the Akashic records. And in fact, who did I hear say this? I think it was you familiar with Al Bielek?
Yes.
Al
I'm not incredibly, but yes.
But you know who I'm talking about. So Al Bielek has said on several occasions that the Akashic records are stored in the Van Allen belts.
The radiation belt.
Yeah.
Well, for us,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
There's more. There are
Well, sure.
more,
Yeah. There's a universal one too. I mean, just ours.
but ours is there. Well, Casey had mentioned that the lost souls are in what's called the sea
Mhm.
of souls. And as you're on your way to get to the Akashic records, you have to pass through them
Mm.
in order to get to the Akashic record.
Okay.
So then, it's like one thing, could justify the other or confirm the reality of another.
Yeah, that also points towards what we see in the sky as stars are actually local. If one school of thought is that stars are spirits or souls, they could be lost, right? And if you have to if what Casey was saying is true, and you have to pass through the lost souls to get to the Akashic, and the Akashic is in Van Allen belts, then stars are local. They're not billions of trillions of miles away. They're here above the Earth. The flat Earth.
I don't know about the flat Earth.
No, I was teasing. I'm teasing. It's not flat.
I don't know about the flat Earth.
It's a holodeck, dude.
It is. It's totally holographic.
Mm.
Totally holographic. I'm on board with that one. And the multi dimensions and stuff like that. And I was listening to Linda Moulton Howell, and she was describing some of her encounters and the discussions that she had with some of her interviewers, and how they were saying that, what's outside of all of this, the multiple universes and the multiple timelines and all of that stuff like that. And if you really want to get completely out of it, you don't want to know. You seriously don't want to know what's outside all of this. You know what I've come to believe? We're freaking Whoville.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can pull up to that. It's certainly at a
You know what I
certain
mean?
level.
Yeah.
At a certain level, I can totally pull up to that. There's, Dan, there's a lot of stuff going on just recently, just here in the last couple months, that is, and I just had a strange experience last night that I recorded and posted, and that kind of is my interpretation of this as well. There are beings, sentient beings, that are suggesting that they're so outside of what we can conceptualize, that the idea of conceptualizing them alone is, I mean, this is what they call the heart attack factor, or the um I think in the Bible, like, talking about the terribles, where they're so terrible that men die from heart attacks upon encountering them. And but like last night I just had an experience, and it was unique in my life, and it was very creepy, and I recorded it. And just in short, though, it was it was terrible. I don't know how to describe it. It was like so here's how here's how I've described it. It was like, when you're in a room, say you're in a room of people, and somebody flatulates. So that's a fart for people that don't understand what a flatulation is. And it goes around the room, but no one knows who does it. But it's different than the air, right?
Right.
Except for, so you notice it. There's a presence here, but it's invisible. The same with any kind of gas. And so I went into my dressing room, and I had a very strange dream cycle last night, and I'd fallen asleep in my normal clothes. And I went in my dream, in my my dream, in my dressing room to get into the house frock, right? And not sleep in a beautiful lace dress. And
Right.
I closed the door, and I'm in the darkness, which I'm fine. I'm like a cat in the darkness. And I'm getting heavy tinnitus right now in my right ear. Uh, so right as I'm putting my hand on the switch to turn it on, and it's pitch black in there, but it's my dressing room, which is one of my favorite places to be. I love it.
Yeah.
And as I turn on, I realize I'm not alone. And I thought, oh shit. I mean, it was like
Palpable.
absolutely palpable. And I thought, there's no way I have wolves here and stuff. There's like, I just couldn't imagine. And so my rational mind said, it's not a human, it's not
No.
something
Right.
like that. So I turn the light on, and it's this presence in the room that is like a stench, but with no smell. It's like, it's nebulous. It's fucking nebulous. It's everywhere and nowhere.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm trying to process it, and I decide I always try to engage in
Oh,
stuff.
right.
So I'm not one that will run. And it was this interaction I had with it that was basically this: I can't conceptualize it. It wanted me to know it was there. It wanted me to know that they're everywhere, whatever the hell this thing is.
Oh, yeah.
And there's more to it. There's
Oh,
more to
yeah.
it. And I recorded it and all this. But the thing is, that is alarming, because what it was saying to me basically was, you can't conceptualize what I look like at all. There's nothing within your power to conceptualize what I look like. And
Okay.
this makes sense to me as an artist, because that's the role of artists, is to present what others can't see, whether it's fiction, whether it's painting, it's
Right.
part of the role. And
Right.
so, but here's the thing, it was not friendly. It
Mhm.
was friendly towards me in the sense that it was letting me know it existed. It was letting me know that it was terrible too. And it was communicating to me some different information. And I was very uneasy. Like, then I wouldn't get dressed. I took off my sweater, and I took off everything but the the dress, and I put on, the house frock sweater and shawl, and I wouldn't get naked. I felt completely exposed.
Sure.
Now I've had that throughout my whole life, and I realize that we kind of are anyway, that it doesn't matter, and I'm always usually fine with that. But this
Yes.
thing felt so incredibly intrusive.
Invasive. Yes.
Yes, and not in a good way, and it
Yes.
was uh I guess that's what I want to say. And so I'd been hearing stories like this just recently. Like I can't remember, like I think before the Trump stuff, when Trump was still the president, he had mentioned there's like some talk on disclosure, and then that kind of talk came out where like they can't really let us know. The public's not ready to know what space really is. The public's not ready to know what this particular sentient alien stuff is. And they lump space in that it's not what we think it is, and it's not even what we can conceptualize. And it sounded ominous. They didn't create it, and they didn't present it in a friendly way. Let me put it that way. And so
Yeah.
that has had me thinking. And then I had that experience last night, and then some more after that. But
Yeah.
what is visible to us is so limited. What
Yes.
we can even conceptualize
Mhm.
is so limited. And beyond being able to peer into ultraviolet and infrared with technology, right? We can do that with night vision and stuff, where we can see stuff that we're not able to see without those uh that particular tech. And that's just part of it. This is
Yeah.
just part of it. uh that there are things out here in the way out, where we are, wherever we are, whatever is going on, that are absolutely so foreign to us that we don't know how to perceive them. And so they can be literally, without having any tech, existing with us, because we can't even conceptualize them, let alone see them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I went into this a while back, feeling into your surroundings. You know, when you go about clearing, the practice
Yes.
is clearing, and
Yes.
you clear your space,
Cut,
clear,
cut and clear. Yeah, baby. I got you.
right? Okay. There is a level where you have to accept, well, I did myself, but that doesn't matter. The sum, it does not matter. So while I was doing the clearing, I made specifically sure, said that, look, I'm okay. I am okay with what has no effect here. As long as you join forces with me to protect what is here, because I am quite okay and I am quite aware of things that just pass through, like walk-ins. You cannot stop things from coming through, and things show up that are not from here, but you know they're there. And you're never alone. You're never alone,
Yeah. Yeah.
truly. You may not interact with them. You may not even sense that they're there, but they're there.
Hmm. I know.
And it's, I have to continuously remember, or else you drive yourself crazy, to just deal with what is here. It boggles my mind how we can get off on such craziness in topics like time does not exist. We have a hard enough time dealing with the now
Mm.
because we're so stuck with everything that affected us before and worried to death about what's coming up. And you want to talk to me about time? You want to talk to me about time being not a thing, where everything is happening all at once. If you cannot even conceive of dealing with right now, the average person is worried about the day to day. What's going to happen with my kids? What's going to happen with the government? What's going to happen with my car? You know what I mean? And we're also taking that with dealing with the average person is dealing with what happened to them in the past and basing
Yeah.
all of their current reactions and their emotions and everything, all their thought processes are based on what happened in the past. And 90% of the human reality has been raised in a dysfunctional space. So they don't have an understanding of what their free will even is, let alone knowing what it is. So that for me to just say that, you know, oh, time doesn't exist. This didn't grow itself automatically. I'm not a baby and now at the same time. I am not experiencing that, right? But there are dimensions where that does exist. And I'll allow for that. And I will accept that. But that is not my current experience. And I have a hard enough time talking to people on a level where, and the more we get into this stuff, and I know, Jerry, you've experienced this as well, the fewer people you can talk about this about on a serious level before they look at you and they say, well, you're just crazy. You know what I mean? It's like, well, there are things around us that we don't understand, that we don't see it. And yeah, it's like, you know, the cosmonauts are who gone into space and all of a sudden they're talking with their dead relatives. All right.
Or going to Antarctica.
Well, that's another thing. And then here's the thing with those kinds of situations. I cannot experience it unless I remote view, but I don't even have the will or desire to remote view what's going on down there. For me, my curiosity was answered back in 1970. I saw it with my own eye. Everybody's waiting for the government to say, oh, they're here. I already knew they're here. The village that I went to visit for 3 months, they all knew it was here.
Yeah.
This is not something new, people.
Yeah.
And you watch the stuff on Ancient Aliens and stuff like that. It's like, hello. Edgar Cayce was like, yeah, well, they built the pyramids at the time where people were experiencing off-worlders.
But see, Dan, here's the
Yeah.
thing. Especially in ufology, most of the quote unquote aliens that people talk about are anthropomorphized. They're humanoid.
Yeah.
We have black goo, and we have a couple nebulous things that are going on. But at the level of which something is, I mean, some of this stuff, like what I experienced last night, felt very Lovecraftian, like Cool Air or Color Out of Space, where it was something that you actually can't define because you can't conceive of it. And that's the part that is very that reminds us that humans need to anthropomorphize things to make them real. And this is why when they're talking about, well, we have life that can live in no oxygen, no light, down at the geysers under the sea and stuff like this, and microbial life and all this stuff that exists, but people don't understand that those kinds of single cell organisms or very simplistic organisms, what if they're components? What if they can actually do like a transformer? You know what I'm saying? Join up and create something. I mean, there's just the world of possibilities is out there. And the fact that we mostly, when we conceive of others that are not us, they are still humanoid in
Mm,
some way, shape, or form. They might be scary, buggish like,
mm.
they might be bug people, they might be snake people, they might be mantoid people, they might be alligator people, all this stuff. But it's so little there's so little in the canon of
Thank you, because that's exactly where I was going to go with that.
right.
The
So take it.
angels were described just as you're talking about.
Yes. I've been learning, I've been deep diving that stuff with Gary Wayne.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, unbelievable.
Fantastical
Yeah.
is the best way to describe it, and horrifying.
Oh yeah, this is no
Horrifying. It's funny because it was one of the things that I remember in the Edgar Cayce readings. It was like you could always tell when one of the archangels showed up because they have no sense of dignity, dignity or
Humanity.
stability. They come on and it's like, this is the way it is. It's very direct.
Well, what about the cherubim? It's a wheel of eyes.
Yes.
I mean, it's a wheel of eyes.
What you just talked about, Dan, though, what you just said, though, is what makes me think that angels, demons, all that are some kind of, I don't want to say
other dimension.
I want to say AI, but not AI. Some kind of single-minded intelligence or collective. Same for a lot of ETs, because people who channel ETs, it's always, we. It's never I, it's never individuated. It's always from a collective perspective, which has always made me think that it's some kind of inorganic intelligence or non-human intelligence that's, and the other thing that makes me think that is that angels, especially if you study like the Goetia or things like that, they all have agency. They all have purpose. They have a single task that they do. They're not, they're not multitaskers. They all have like one thing they're responsible for, and that's what they do, and they don't vary from that. So, I don't know. It's just interesting.
It's funny how we started to define our saints in the same way. This is the saint of that. This is the saint of that. This is the
yes.
Right?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, why?
I think that's more an offshoot from like the Greek gods, Roman gods, because there was a god for everything.
And I think it is based off of fear of the unknown.
Oh, of course.
If you don't know it, you humanize it. So this way you could not be afraid.
Right.
Right? So what did they do with the devil? They made him a man with horns and a tail.
Yeah, which is not in the Bible at all. There's no horns in the Bible.
Exactly.
So I think that grew out of like the horn god, the Baal imagery.
Roamed around like a lion.
Mm-hmm.
What he was described as. He was here and he was there.
He got around.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I remember that movie, The City of Angels.
Oh yeah.
Love that movie. Love that movie.
That's a goodie.
There is. Go ahead, Jim.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
There is a level there that they're trying to explain to you what actually happens. And it's kind of like the story of the soul. And it's hard for a person to actually understand like the soul. Well, I like the way the Anubis thing and everything like that. It was just like you can weigh your soul on a scale through a feather and stuff like that, right? Because if you think about it, you could make your soul, if you allow your imagination. Edgar Cayce was huge on the imagination. You let your imagination go, you can start visualizing some really insane things. To the point where he was saying, well, yeah, the Minotaur and the Pegasus and all that stuff is real. That actually exists somewhere.
So everything exists somewhere.
Right. You know, so that always like tripped me out, man. Here's one thing, and for some of the people who like, you know, will go back a little. I was big into Thor and Norse mythology, particularly the relationship between Thor and his father, because here is a godling who had a problem with his father. He's going through a rebellious stage, and his father thinks he knows more because he's all father, right? And here this guy is just trying to do the best he can with what he has in his mental faculties, right? At the time. So he railed at one point, and he called for the winds of the north and the winds of the south and the winds of the east and the winds of the west. And he raged the storm. He called upon it. And I read that episode and I said, what the hell? I went up on the roof of a 6-story building. Nice, calm September evening, right? Sun setting. And I had felt it. I had felt it. And I did exactly what he said. Got it out of my system. Nothing happened. By the time I got downstairs into the apartment, it was raining cats and dogs. Never seen a cloud. Everything was fine. I went to look out my bedroom window and I was like, what the hell is going on? How does that happen, Derek?
I'm not sure, but I think it serves to reinforce your belief in whatever it was you were doing.
And also
It's empowering. I mean,
yeah. And plus it's the connection to the environment. There's something very big there going on with how we're experiencing this whole realm. And there's a part of that that makes me think about taking agency. And that is part of the story of the gods and how that, especially if we want to look at it from, say, different lenses. So, yeah, that's, I personally can see a causality between the two. So for me, that's a direct communication of sorts, a direct cause and effect, if you will.
it's confirmation.
Yeah,
Which
just like Jerry said.
Leads me into a question that someone asked is, what's your opinion of Castaneda, if you have one?
I had a guest on who their mentor was heavily into God. And there were things that were discussed, and they went over about the things that were not considered good and how it's really stolen information. But it's more like it's the message to me where it falls in line with you take what works for you, you apply it. And if it works, then take that. And what does not work, well, then leave that. It's a lot. All of this new age stuff, when they started coming out with all this new age stuff, was really this old age stuff brought to the fore. meditation, stuff like that, and reincarnation, chakras, and breathing exercises. I think the Castaneda stuff, I came into it after learning the 12 steps and 12 traditions, and which pretty much came from an Oxford group thing, which turns out to be not such a great group. But their principles were, if practiced, very self-aware, generating, to
Yeah.
where it was okay for me to get to know myself on all levels, experience myself on all levels, be okay with what is not so great, be okay with what's great. Don't think myself more than I am, but don't belittle myself either, and allow other people to be who exactly that they are, and pick them from who they are, which encompasses all that they are. So what they're telling me at any given time, that's their crap. Good, bad, indifferent. And they need to say what they need to say. And it has absolutely nothing to do with them unless it resonates. If it resonates, then I'll allow that, but I won't take it, you know? I'll allow it to just be. Because a lot of times we run into people and they're just experiencing their life, you know, and when you meet them, it seems like they're caustic, toxic, and freaking, you know, but the bottom line is, if you allow them that, then for some reason, something happens. If I allow them to have that moment where they need to just be themselves, then all of a sudden they don't, they're not, they're not expressing themselves in a manner where it's directed at me anymore. Now it's just, wow, because they really expected me to react, which is a cultural thing that I think the earth has been cultivating. It's propaganda, it's culture, that everybody has to react. Nobody can think. You're not allowed to think. You're not allowed to give yourself time to just be a witness to what's going on. Right away, we have to be involved with what's going on. I don't have to be involved. I don't have to be a part of that, which is hard because right now, I never really gave much of a care for politics in that. And I never really cared for the news. I turned off my television after 2001, because it was all bad, nonstop, 24/7. And it seemed like the good stories, the humanitarian stories, the people helping each other were so far apart that feeling good felt like a crime. How dare you feel good? Don't you know what's going on in the world? That's not you. That's them. That is the narrative. And I don't have to be a part of that, which is being detached from spirituality as it has been, pulling away from that which has become the internet, the Twitter, the Telegram, the Gab. It's the new addiction to the news that I tried to get away from. And trying to pull myself out of it is literally an exercise in free will. And becoming aware of that and accepting and owning it is the only way I'm going to be able to say, okay, well, I quit a lot of things in my life. I quit, all kinds of stuff that was not good for me. I can just do this also. But not just right now. Because it's too damn exciting. Every day you turn around, it's like some crazy nonsense is actually occurring. It's like history is being made.
Well,
But
it's
it's not
not
like
even every day. Sometimes it's hourly.
It's outright.
How about that? The ship getting stuck in the Suez Canal this week.
Right. I mean, that's
Named
crazy.
Evergreen,
Yes.
which is a code name used for HRC.
Yep.
Which had a tugboat named Baraka.
Yep. It's so thick.
Right?
Yeah, it's thick.
It's crazy.
It is insane.
It's almost like an AI is writing the script. Just pulling from history,
So this nebulous dark stuff that's here, that is making itself known, which we've been given that before. The Ahrimanic force. Steiner tried to put a sculpture to it, but that sculpture does not resonate with an Ahrimanic force. That sculpture resonates with Satan. You know what I mean? And the depiction of.
Yeah.
I don't think the Ahrimanic force is something we can see, that we can have any recognition of to anything. I think it's beyond our scope. And I think that is very true. And what you said about not being able to conceive such a sentience, because it's out of our wheelhouse. It's out of our realm of experience. It is nothing that we know. And because we know it, of course, we're going to fear it, because we fear the unknown. That's a natural instinct.
Right.
But it doesn't have to rule us.
Well, with the thing I experienced, its energy was real lowly. And I got the sense that I don't know. And so I have no answers here, but I got the sense that because the energy felt kind of low, that perhaps I had, perhaps one can just tune up the frequency. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I have no idea, but it was concerning and it was unique. And yet I'd been hearing kind of some of this talk around weird disclosure talk coming from the government. And in particular, when Trump was still at the end of his administration, uh, there was that language coming out that we're not ready for the reality of what space is. We're not ready for the reality of what some of these other life forms are. And so it was like, well, I guess at some point whether it's true or not, we need to kind of find ourselves in the idea that the world is bigger. The idea of the world is bigger than we actually think. And I think when people think that, they think of all this typical ufology stuff and all this typical new age stuff. I think that we don't even have an inkling of an idea of what actually really could be going
Sure.
on.
I totally agree. Totally agree. I mean, the mere thought of infinity drives mathematicians insane. And it has, literally. It's driven mathematicians insane because just the concept alone is beyond their scope. So things that are beyond our scope, to me, it's just beyond our reality. So if it's beyond my reality,
Well,
I'm
with the
either,
infinity, Dan,
yes,
you at least there's like visuals around the idea of infinity. So the mirrors, right? So you get an idea, like you just mirror on like fractals and Mandelbrot's and all this, even though we can't conceptualize the greatness and the smallness of what infinity really is, we have some imagery around those ideas. And so it's more approachable than saying it becomes more of an approachable idea than some of the language coming out from certain parties around uh whatever this disclosure stuff's going on.
right,
And then I, having that experience last night, wouldn't have thought of I mean, there's no reason for me to make that shit up, and there
no,
was no reason for. I mean, I'd rather not have had that experience. Let me put it that way. It made
right,
me very uncomfortable in my own home.
right, right. And it'll stay that way until you've allowed it. You know what I mean?
Well, my idea is you're not welcome here. Wherever
Well,
you
right.
are,
You
you
know?
may not pass. But it was in there. And I started to wonder, I started to think about it is, because this periphery stuff's kind of amping up, and they went from like critter size, like
Yes.
cat and dog size. Now they're
Yes.
like human size. And I'm wondering, is it somehow related? I'm always trying to dot connect. It's just my world that I live in. And I guess that's questioning my reality. And so I'm just always trying to dot connect. And then I'm trying to ground ideas down into stuff that is at least reasonably thought about by certain groups of people, different groups of people, stuff that has had some thought put into it, and then maybe some math around it. And not that that should make any difference, not that it should make any difference, but it helps me with the idea of mental stability. And because I was way out there when I was young, and that was the key thing for me moving forward as a very young person that had some trauma, was I need to maintain always some sort of control.
Anchor. Yeah.
Yes. And that's why I was never able to be an addict of anything
Yeah.
except for mundane things, right?
Mhm.
So that's one of the key factors in that still rules my world. It's one of the laurels. I kind of need to have stability, some sense of stability, or I go way far out. And when I go way far out, there is a disconnect from the idea of reality. And I don't know what that is, why I need to do it. Even when I was young and I did LSD and mushrooms, psychedelics,
The
I
good
still
shit.
had I still had that right. I still had to have a grounding factor though.
Right.
And so I mostly did. But so with that thing last night, there's no I mean, I can't even explain it to you.
No,
I can't
exactly.
even tell
You
you,
can't.
but outside of the fact that it was a stench without a stench, it was a stench without smell. But on this note, we are about half hour over and I haven't eaten yet and baby's hungry.
I'm starving. I'm trying not to eat over here. Well, Dan, this has been a fantastic conversation, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Dan, this
welcome.
was, like I said, a long time coming, and we need to have you, even though this was like an awkward, strange Nox Mente, because it bordered on an obelisk. We need to have you on the obelisk, where we can just get deeper into some hardcore woo.
Mhm.
Sure. Sure.
We'll set that up for next month or so.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, cool.
So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Nish. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Be sure to tune in next week. We're going to have Micah Dank, who's got a presentation, like a whole PowerPoint he's going to show us about Bible codes. So that should be really interesting.
Oh, cool.
No, interesting. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too. So, and he told me not to watch any of his old shows. He wants us to come in cold.
Oh, okay. So no deep diving.
No deep dive.
All right, because I don't actually know who he is. So
No, me neither.
so
I just saw he's been on a lot of shit lately. That's for sure. So.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll come in cold and then we'll go from there.
Best way.
Mm.
It can be.
Well, sometimes you need a little lube.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
No.
It was all good until the end. Let's see. This is
Yeah, we didn't even get any Igor talk at all.
I know. Sorry, boys.
All right. Well, thanks, Dan. Thanks, Nish. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, folks. Bye-bye.